Welcome everybody to this Kassadin Jungle Guide. I'm Slogan Motion, and those of you that are here from the Niche community might know me as Kassadin Jungle Guy. I'm just going to be uploading a quick preview through the practice tool here to give you guys some tips and tricks on how to not die to this clear, and how to ensure that you make it to level 12 with your Lich Bane and your level 7 intact. We'll go ahead and lock this in. Here's the runes real quick. Fleet, Presence, Alacrity, Coup, Footwear, Features Market, Attack Speed, Adaptive Armor. And you can flex Presence of Mind for Triumph if you want. Smite and Flash, all standard. There was a time when I was taking Exhaust on this pick, but I kind of came to my senses and realized that Flash is more important late game when we have all this gold and levels stacked up on us. Got to keep ourselves alive. So here we go, we're in the practice tool. We're just going to go ahead and buy our Hailblade, and lately I've been enjoying starting 3 health potions. You can start a refill if you're greedy, but I have preferred lately having the extra health, and you'll see why in a moment. So we're going to teleport out, and let's just start this clear. Now, to be very clear, I have no qualms with doing this clear leashless. You can do this clear leashless both red to blue or sorry, blue to red or red to blue. But it just takes, good clearing. Obviously, using fleet helps out a lot, and warding for early invades is kind of a mandatory. Want to use this fleet proc here to sneak by without taking an auto attack. And I should have used my potion earlier, but obviously in the practice tool here, it doesn't really matter. We'll finish him quick, use Q immediately, and you can tell that our Q magic shield actually does work on the Gromp's magic damage, which is a nice little bonus. I want to move in between each auto attack here to make sure that we're generating our fleet stacks. Just keep this Gromp on, working on down. Now, during this clear, unfortunately, it is a bit involved, so you'll have the urge to look around, but every movement and every auto attack can be a little daunting. It's sort of like playing Nidalee jungle if you've ever played her early clear, only with less AoE. But you just want to focus here on keeping your jungle passive procced on these little wolves as much as possible, since that burn is DPS and is helping us over time. And obviously want to kite in between all the autos, use as much of this passive as we can, the fleet passive that is. Leveling E, and now you'll see here we're about, 25 seconds till scuttle. We've got plenty of time to do this red. Normally I probably would have backed for a sweeper so we wouldn't have ward here. But I always like to kite the red into this corner, not only because it's good kiting, but also just because, if this enemy jungler does happen to invade this bush, there's a decent chance their vision might not reveal you, and they might just think you started your red. Fade away smite this, and then usually we go straight to the scuttle. Praying that the other jungler isn't here. Hopefully we're fast enough that we can just do a quick auto Q, auto W, obviously use the Q to remove the shield, and the moment we clear this, we are backing. Immediately backing. Now this is basically best case scenario, as fast as it could have been. But if you drop a few autos, if you lose a little bit of health, maybe you're here a little late, or you have to fight over the scuttle, you're essentially going to be at the tip of the fountain here with just enough to buy Sheen with our debt. But you don't want to use this debt here unless you absolutely have to. We want to keep moving. Also important to note here, you want to press W in the base and while you're walking back to your camps, because you're generating E stacks, which is a very important tool considering we are going to be maxing E first. So I'm going to keep pressing W. It only costs 1 mana, so it's literally no reason not to use it. And you can also see that our Sheen proc here is available. If I had timed this perfectly, I would have gotten that Sheen proc, but now unlike before where we were just sort of cycling abilities as fast as possible, it is very important now that we actually take our time to get this Sheen proc every time we have it available. You can see that Sheen proc coming in clutch already, doing a lot of damage to those little golems. And here I'm going to keep 2 of these guys alive to make sure I can get a Q proc and a W proc as I move. Now our clear is going to be a little low right here, unfortunately, because we did have to start the regular potions, so it's important to use your smite, use your fleet, clear as safely as you can, get those Sheen procs in. Here I did my best to try to keep my E up, so I can use the E to clear those small raptors. We're going to want kite and get these autos. Leeching a little bit of experience here isn't horrible, it'll help us out in our late clear. but you just want to keep moving. At this point, you know, people are going to be pinging you for ganks. They're going to be pinging that, you know, they got ganked or that their laner's out of sums or whatever it is, but you do not want to get baited at this moment. You just want to keep on your clear, keep proccing the Sheen, just keep focusing on getting to late game Kassadin, which is where we want to be. And I'm probably going to reset this. Nope, we're good. And obviously with efficient kiting and, you know, good movement, you can make this look a lot easier than I'm making it look right now. A lot healthier, a lot better. And ultimately, as long as you're not getting invaded on this pick, we're happy. But even if we get invaded, you know, like I said, you could lose a buff on an early invade. Say you do a 3 camp, you lose your buff. As long as you lose that buff gracefully and you don't die, you can always just counter to the opposite side of the scuttle. Make sure you get that scuttle while the other jungler's taking this one. And as long as you get 4 of those opening 5 camps, you can still get that Sheen and still have enough to keep on the path. And you'll notice here I was picking the refill back up. This is a variance I made because the clears do still hurt quite a bit, and for that additional safety we took early game with the health potion, this is sort of us paying for that initial investment. You don't need to buy this if you're feeling greedy, but I often like to, just to make sure that we're kind of topped off on these camps, because before we get Lich Bane, this can get a little hairy. You might have a moment here if you had Sweeper to maybe sweep a bush, but this will spawn relatively quickly, and we get right back to our clear. Now at this point we've done brain fart. We've done 2 clears, right? Or no, we will have done 3. No, 2. Yes, sorry, 2. No, we're on our 3rd. Yeah, this is our 3rd. Goodness. Point being, you end up doing this quite a lot. Just kind of starting out at bottom, clearing up toward top, and every time it gets a little easier, but you'll notice that devoid of our Lich Bane spike, we do kind of lack for damage around this time. So even when we hit 6 on this clear, we don't want to get married to any idea, you know, certain ganks or what have you. You know, if something looks free, obviously go for it. We're going to have 3 points in E. We'll have enough crowd control potential and hopefully flash up to be able to make some plays even without a Lich Bane or any real base damage. But at the end of the day, like I said, we don't really want to get married to any idea because, you know, there's always a better option on Kassadin, which is scaling. Why would we, you know, risk a bunch of resources mid lane when we can just keep walking bot to top, keep getting our farm on, you know, this champion who normally has to contest a lot for farm, you know? Not the greatest wave clear, often has to, you know, give up prio in mid lane to lane bullies. But in the jungle, you know, at least they have to find you first. Obviously against very competent junglers, they're going to know where to look and know how to find you, but as long as you're good at gracefully giving up a camp every now and again when they choose to commit that much time to you, you know, you can still make this pick look good with catch-up experience and, you know, masterful use of your R in mid-game. Obviously this pick is not for every matchup. There's certainly some matchups I would probably avoid at all costs. But Kassadin's mobility and his ability to, you know, pick certain people in team fights and come out of crazy angles due to the fact that he can multicast R really makes it so that you can become creative with this pick. Only downside is you lose a lot of that creative expression in the first 10 minutes because you are sort of bound to doing this initial clear. At this point, you know, obviously if the scuttle was here I would take it, but I would anticipate not relying on this farm being here. We're level 6, like I said, we could have looked for gank there, but it oftentimes is not in our best interests. So I'll often just do this, grab a book, start charging up my stacks, charge my stacks with R and W, and we're entering into our 4th and final clear. During this clear at any point, I find it fully acceptable to diverge off, as long as we have at least a few AP items in our Sheen built, and ideally, you know, maybe 500 gold down to get our Lich Bane. But best case scenario, we actually get the Lich Bane before we ever really pop out to threaten anything. Here I would start the red just so that our camps are on better spawn timers with the golems, the raptors, and whatnot. I'm going to go ahead and actually save this E stack because I'm going to be going into golems in just a second, so. But you get the hang of it as you go, and obviously it seems weird that I'm holding my Q and my W, but once again, I'm just doing that to make sure I can use Sheen essentially on cooldown, because that's where we're getting most of our clear value. here, you know, whatever. Probably wouldn't normally use E to clear little golems, but once you have your R, it's not as important. You can always just apply your buff with the R, you know, W and walk away, Q and walk away, and then your second R here, pretty much, you know, is going to bleed them out, and if it doesn't, you've always got another R coming. And since we've got blue buff, I mean, we really don't have to worry about spamming R too much in the jungle as long as we always have at least one available to get over a wall in case, like, you know, Warwick or Kayn or Graves or something decides to randomly invade us, right? At this point, though, I mean, we have R. You know, we go from being one of the kind of weakest, most invadable picks in the jungle to being suddenly extremely safe. You know, and this guy comes over to invade us, boom, we're gone, right? It's almost impossible to die at this point as long as we're paying attention, and especially if we are, you know, have decent wards out, decent map awareness. But, you know, here I would just clear out my Gromp, and I often notice at this point in time, you know, 10, 11 minutes, junglers are always floating around this dragon or this bot lane, and it's really pretty rare that I get contested on just kind of walking straight to this at level 7 with not a lot of items. Now, is this the best move in high elo? Probably not, but, you know, I'm just a gold player, and so this works out quite often for me, where this doesn't even get checked. And if it does, you know, sometimes you can duel with R. You know, you're casting in at level 7 with a decent amount of gold spent. It's not like we're completely weak here. And we've got Flash, we've got ult. At the very least, we're never dying here. You know, worst case scenario, we run to this wall, we get to this plant. You know, how bad could it possibly be? Best case scenario, you know, they're committing all the resources to Dragon. We get a smite, we take this down, we grab it, and we're just a couple R hops over the wall from maybe, you know, punishing a top laner who just reset, or maybe there's a dive potential and we can just go, oh, well, we don't fail throwing it over the wall, of course, but, you know, the moment it comes down, we can just stand out of vision, wait for it to charge, and then the moment it's charging, we just get right in there, try to get as much value out of it as we can, get a bunch of free plate gold, because once again, we're Kassadin and we want that early gold, but I wouldn't rely on this Herald strategy. It's just sort of, you know, if it's there at 12 minutes, take it. It always seems to be a good idea. And maybe don't use it right away. Sometimes this feedback is a useful tool to manipulate, but I've always found that if you can get 2 or 3 plates or even take a tower right away, the decisive action is better. And obviously with that case, we come back with plenty of gold for Lich Bane, Tier, and, you know, in this case, maybe a Dark Seal, maybe we, you know, sell our refill for Ionian Boots, maybe we just get a Sapphire Crystal and a ward. You know, the options here are kind of limitless, and from here you go into your Mythic, but, you know, that's basically the opening clear is just those 4 camps. At this point, you're going to feel like a regular champion in a regular jungle that, you know, isn't nerfed beyond oblivion. And just as a last note here, you know, if you do ever want to reverse this clear, instead of the clear we did, which is blue, Gromp, Wolves, red, you can go ahead and reverse the clear, red, Wolves, Gromp, blue. However, if you do this, I would recommend getting a leash, or at the very least, not starting the refillable potion. Probably would start the 3 pots as well, just to ensure that we are a decent health coming off of this, because losing the CDR but gaining the damage over time, it's kind of a trade-off, but really it's the fact that we're not doing Gromp at level 2. Level 2 Gromp, or I should say not right off of level 2. This Wolves at level 2 tends to be a little bit hairy, but ultimately reversing the clear shouldn't make too much of a difference, and choosing to do so is optimal if you think that the enemy jungler is going to be starting the opposite side. If we can get this scuttle uncontested, or this scuttle uncontested, that's really what we should be shooting for, because, as I said, if we get our 4 camp with the scuttle, we don't have to use Det for Sheen, and we can get to this Lich Bane as soon as possible. I think that's about it. Any other tips and tricks I will have included in my Reddit post on the Chilneys subreddit. I'll keep that link in the description. This is me signing out. Enjoy playing Jungle Kassadin.